Clark commented underneath that video. We want to see Steph make 12 threes a game. Stop grabbing him, please.
Steph Curry's shooting coach has been posting Caitlin Clark online. Steph wore her Nike shoes. Now, there's evidence suggesting she might be working out with his personal shooting coach. Meanwhile, Caitlin just left a comment on Steph's interview that has everyone reading between the lines. The connection between these two is getting stronger, and the timing is very interesting for multiple reasons. Before we break this down, quick question. If Caitlin Clark is actually training with Steph Curry's shooting coach during the off-season, does that make her even more dangerous next season, or is this just off-season hype? Drop your thoughts below, because this connection matters. So, Caitlin Clark has been pretty active on social media lately, which isn't unusual for her. But she said something recently that caught everyone's attention and has people speculating about what's happening behind the scenes. Steph Curry gave an interview after a game where the Hornets were face-guarding him like their lives depended on it. And Caitlin commented on the video. Her comment, "We want to see Steph make 12 threes a game. Stop grabbing him, please."
Has seen it, but Caitlin Clark commented underneath that video. We want to see Steph make 12 threes a game. Stop grabbing him, please. And she never really, she would say when something was a foul or to, a complaint to that ilk. But Caitlin hasn't come out and said, what they're doing isn't basketball.
Now, on the surface, that's just a fan supporting another player. But when you're Caitlin Clark and you make that specific comment about that specific issue, people notice, because grabbing, holding, and physical harassment on the perimeter has been one of the defining issues of Caitlin's WNBA experience so far. Let's talk about what Steph actually said in that interview, because it's relevant. He was asked if it bothers him being guarded the way the Hornets defended him, and his response was perfect. He said there's a part of him that fights it, because it's not real basketball. But there's also a part that's flattering, because it shows how much attention he demands, and how that attention creates shots for his teammates.
Does it bother you in any way being guarded the way they did in a regular season game?
There's a part of you that fights it just because it's not real basketball, but there's also a part of it that's flattering. Just knowing that you demand that much attention, and also what it does to create shots for other guys on the floor. So, and I've seen it all, so I know if that's how they want to guard, how I can be effective, not let it take me out of the game, but also kind of use it to our advantage as a team. And then it's also funny at times just how egregious it is. There's one possession, I gotta find I actually get the footage. I actually stayed back in the backcourt a long time on purpose just to see how long Sion would stay with me. So that was a fun one.
Yeah, there's a clip of Colin Sexton covering you when you left the court.
Yeah, we both knew what we were doing. We were having fun.
That phrase, "it's not real basketball," is doing a lot of work there. Steph is diplomatically saying that when defenses resort to grabbing, holding, and face guarding instead of actually playing defense, it's not legitimate basketball strategy. It's desperation masked as physicality. And Caitlin Clark knows exactly what that feels like, because she dealt with it constantly during her first WNBA season. She was blitzed more than any other player to start the year. Defenses would send 2, and sometimes 3, defenders at her the second she crossed half court. She got grabbed, held, bumped, and pushed on nearly every possession.
Caitlin Clark, and you get the attention that she does, you're going to get outsized defensive attention. In a rookie season, she was blitzed more to start that year than any team. A lot of that is strategy. They know what she can do. They know where she has the ball, all that stuff. But then there's part of it like trying to prove a point against her. And then, of course, when you want to rough up the other team's star, that's what coaches preach. If the refs are going to let you do it, you do it. It's something that became a point of contention across her WNBA career so far, with Stephanie White, who probably deployed that strategy with the Connecticut Sun, saying that too much contact is allowed on the perimeter. And that's a thing across the WNBA, and it became a theme across the WNBA. But, Caitlin is allowed to be grabbed and held and all those things. Even to the point where I remember there was a broadcast where Rebecca Lobo pointed out, like, there's a foul, and there's a foul, and there's a foul. Like,
some of that is legitimate defensive strategy. When you're playing against the best shooter in the league, you adjust your coverage. But some of it crossed the line into the kind of contact that would get called fouls in any other context. And the WNBA refs just let it happen. Stephanie White, who's now coaching Caitlin in Indiana but was coaching against her in Connecticut last season, even admitted that too much contact is allowed on the perimeter across the league. Rebecca Lobo did a broadcast where she pointed out multiple uncalled fouls on Caitlin in rapid succession, like she was Oprah giving away cars. Asterisk, you get a foul. You get a foul. You get a foul. Asterisk, but Caitlin herself has been relatively quiet about it publicly. She's complained about specific plays, like the Kennedy Carter shoulder check that was obviously not a basketball play, but she hasn't gone on record saying the way she's defended isn't real basketball. She hasn't made it a public crusade the way some other players and coaches have. So when she comments on Steph's interview saying, "Stop grabbing him," that feels significant. Because she's not just defending Steph, she's speaking for herself without directly making it about herself. It's a smart, diplomatic way to make her point without seeming like she's whining or asking for special treatment. And honestly, she's right. People want to see Steph make 12 threes a game. That's why he sells jerseys in opposing arenas and has signature shoes people line up to buy. His shooting is what makes him special. And when defenses resort to just grabbing him to stop that, it makes the game worse for everyone watching. The same logic applies to Caitlin. People want to see her shoot from 30 feet, hit step-back threes, and make impossible passes. That's what makes her special. That's why attendance doubled when she played. That's why her games got national TV coverage. When defenses just mug her and refs don't call it, the product suffers. The WNBA has weirdly spun excessive physicality as a badge of honor, like somehow allowing more contact makes the league tougher or more legitimate. But that's backwards logic. The NBA doesn't allow that level of grabbing and holding specifically because they want their stars to shine. They understand that people tune in to watch offensive brilliance, not defensive mugging. Kelsey Plum has complained about this. Becky Hammon has complained about this. Natalie Nakes has complained about this. Stephanie White has complained about this. It's a league-wide issue that affects how perimeter players, especially elite shooters, are able to perform. But the fact that Caitlin hasn't been vocal about it publicly until now is interesting. She's been diplomatic, probably because she understands that complaining about officiating can make you look soft or like you're making excuses. Commenting on Steph's situation gives her cover to make the same point without it being directly about her. Now, let's talk about the other connections between Caitlin and Steph that have people speculating. Steph wore Caitlin's Nike shoes recently. His shooting coach has been posting about her online. And based on context clues, there's a strong possibility that Caitlin is working out with Steph's personal shooting coach during the off-season. If that's true, and we don't have confirmation, but the evidence is suggestive, that's a massive development. Steph Curry's shooting coach works with the greatest shooter in basketball history. The techniques, drills, and training methods that have kept Steph at an elite level for over a decade would be incredibly valuable for Caitlin. And it makes perfect sense. Caitlin is already the best shooter in women's basketball, but if she can refine her mechanics even further, improve her shot preparation, and add new elements to her game based on what's worked for Steph, she becomes even more unstoppable. The connection also makes sense from a brand perspective. Nike has invested heavily in both of them. They are both undersized guards who revolutionized how people think about shooting range. They both face similar defensive attention and physical harassment. The synergy is obvious. Steph has always been supportive of women's basketball. He's spoken about his daughters playing and wanting them to see role models in the WNBA. Caitlin represents the kind of player who can inspire the next generation, the same way Steph inspired kids to start shooting from the logo. That alignment of values and playing style creates natural mutual respect. But there's also a competitive element here. Caitlin isn't content with just being good. She wants to be great. She wants to win championships. And if working with Steph's team during the off-season gives her an edge, she's smart enough to take advantage of it. The timing of all this is interesting, too. Caitlin made another social media comment recently that got attention. Elijah Suat, a receiver for Indiana playing in the College Football National Championship, revealed that his dog is named Caitlin Clark. CeCe and Caitlin responded, saying, "Both the player and the dog are welcome courtside this year." Asterisk this year. Asterisk not asterisk if asterisk there's a season, just a casual confirmation that games are happening. She's confident the CBA negotiations are going to work out and the WNBA season is proceeding as planned. And she's probably right, because she's the biggest leverage point the players have. The entire reason WNBA players are in position to negotiate for massive raises is because of what happened during Caitlin's first season. Attendance exploded. Viewership records shattered. Merchandise sales went through the roof. Corporate sponsors who ignored the WNBA for decades suddenly wanted in. That's all because of Caitlin and the attention she brought to the league. So when she says there's going to be a season this year, that carries weight. If Caitlin thought there was a real chance of no season, she'd be more careful with her language. The fact that she's casually inviting people to courtside games suggests she knows something the public doesn't about where those negotiations stand. Caitlin spoke at the USA basketball camp recently and said none of the CBA stuff matters if they're not playing. She called it the most important moment in WNBA history and said players need to fight for what they believe in, but also compromise on other issues. That's remarkably mature and pragmatic for someone in their second year. It also reflects the reality that Caitlin understands her position. She's the driving force behind the players' leverage. Her voice should matter in these negotiations because she's the one bringing in the revenue that makes higher salaries possible. The contrast between the NBA and WNBA on officiating is stark. The NBA has issues with players flopping and selling contact that isn't there. The WNBA has the opposite problem, where legitimate contact gets ignored. Both are bad for the product, just in different ways. Steph saying that excessive face guarding and grabbing isn't real basketball should resonate with WNBA decision makers, because he's right. Real basketball is about skill, spacing, movement, and execution. When defenses can just grab shooters and prevent them from getting clean looks without consequences, the game suffers. Caitlin dealt with this constantly. Teams would assign their most physical defender to her with instructions to make her uncomfortable, bump her off screens, hold her on cuts, hand-check her bringing the ball up, and refs would let most of it go because there's this weird culture in the WNBA that celebrates physicality even when it crosses into cheap play. The Kennedy Carter play was the most obvious example. That wasn't defense. That was a cheap shot designed to send a message. And Caitlin called it out as not a basketball play. But the more subtle grabbing and holding that happens every possession is harder to call out without seeming whiny. So commenting on Steph's situation gives her a vehicle to address it. She's not complaining about her own treatment. She's supporting another player who faces similar issues. But anyone paying attention knows she's talking about her own experience, too. The "we want to see Steph make 12 threes a game" comment is particularly telling, because that's exactly what people want from Caitlin, too. They want to see her launch from 30 feet. They want to see her break records. They want to see offensive brilliance, not defensive mugging. If the WNBA wants to grow, and they clearly do, based on expansion plans and increased media deals, they need to let their stars shine. That means calling the game in a way that allows elite offensive players to showcase their skills. It doesn't mean eliminating physicality entirely. It means finding the right balance. The synergy between Caitlin and Steph is only going to increase if she's actually working with his shooting coach. The techniques that have kept Steph elite into his late 30s could extend Caitlin's prime and help her avoid some of the wear and tear that comes with being the focal point of every defense. Imagine Caitlin coming back next season with refined mechanics, better shot preparation, and new wrinkles to her game based on what she learned from Steph's team. She's already the most dangerous offensive player in the WNBA. If she gets even better, defenses are going to resort to even more desperate tactics to slow her down, which brings us right back to the officiating question. As Caitlin gets better and more unstoppable, the physical harassment is likely to increase unless the league does something about it. And her comment on Steph's interview might be the opening salvo in that conversation. She's too smart to wage a public campaign complaining about officiating. That never works. But by aligning herself with Steph and commenting on the same issues he faces, she applies pressure without making herself the villain. The fact that Stephanie White, who used those physical defensive tactics against Caitlin in Connecticut, is now coaching her in Indiana adds another layer. White knows exactly how effective that strategy was, and she also knows it's not good for the league long term. Having her as an advocate for better officiating carries weight, because she's not just defending her player, she's acknowledging a systemic problem. Caitlin Clark training with Steph Curry's shooting coach and calling out the same defensive tactics they both face isn't coincidence. This is about building her game and building her leverage to change how the WNBA is officiated. If you want more analysis on Caitlin's off-season moves and what they mean for next season, hit that like button and subscribe. The WNBA better be